Open, ask Pastor Vanderklok if he'll open with prayer for guidance, please.
If you would bow your heads, please. Father God, we thank you for this glorious day that you've given to us. Thank you for your goodness. We see it all around us, and we thank you too for the privilege that you've given to us as township board members to be able to serve the residents of Georgetown Township. And as this is our prayer for guidance, we ask that you would guide us in our deliberations, in our discussions, and as we make decisions that will affect the residents of our township. We thank you for those who serve us on staff, and those who protect us in the fire department and those in the sheriff department. Thank you for all of those individuals who provide those services for all of us in the township. And now we ask that you would bless us, and may we be a blessing to others, for we ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. If you'll join me for Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the roll show that all board members are present and accounted for. First item of business, we're going to have a State of the Township report or address by the superintendent, Mr. Carlton.
Thank you. This is the annual kind of update that the board kind of requested to kind of go over a few things. It's just kind of some basic items, and if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask me right when you see it. We're going to go through a few slides. First, you can see the board review just completed, and taxable value is going up slightly again. The assessed value in the township hit $1.6 billion, with our taxable value at $1.4 billion, just over, as you can see. You can see this is not the trend we were on before, but at least it's not going down anymore, and it's starting to go up. And there's a gap that's getting a little bit bigger here between the assessed value and taxable value. That's all part of the 1994 Proposal A savings. Something new that has taken place the last couple years is the state issued an exemption for disabled veterans. They no longer pay tax, and that's up to $2.9 million worth of taxable value that's been exempted. So that's quite a change that the state basically made an adjustment there. Go ahead. And you can see the millage rate still the same this year, and you can see the historical millage rates. These are the difference here is what we're allowed, that the voters have approved this levy. This is the millage we have not levied. This is not the highest rate we've had. We have had higher rates in the past when you combine the different millage. We used to split the millage into different parts. And this is comparing to some of our neighbors, the cities next door to us. We get a lot of inquiries about the tax comparison. Just shows you how we are to them. Now, the other townships also fall on this line, but this kind of shows you the difference between Granville, Wyoming, where a lot of residents come from when they move here. So,
what is that based on?
Head back. This is based on $80,000 taxable value, so okay. Approximately $160,000 value home. So, go ahead. This is our state revenue sharing. You can see it's a significant part of our revenue overall. And as I've mentioned in the past, we used to get statutory revenue sharing, and the state kind of took it away from us. And that's when you heard a lot of communities kind of, you heard a lot of cities starting to complain about the big cuts they were facing because they were the only ones still getting it in this time period. And that's why, they hit the hardest. But I want you to notice, if you see that little fine little, you probably can't even tell in the color, we got a little bit of statutory revenue sharing in 2014, so about $60,000. So it's an interesting change coming back. Our fund balance took a slight dip, but it's still very healthy at $7,838,000. And you can see different development that have occurred during the year. I won't go through each one, but you can see some commercial ones here that have taken place, some improvements at different areas. Go ahead. And you can see a lot of residential lots coming. So it's a significant number of plats have been coming through. And the Planning Commission and the board, of course, started it. They're busy working on updating the master plan. You can see it's a kind of a lengthy process, and they're in full swing doing it at this point. And you can see it right now. Housing starts for the first quarter, and just a comparison of where we are this year versus last year. Now, the quarter's not over. It's still a week or so to go, so you could get a couple more in here, but we're a little bit down. But you can see this is kind of a trend right here where we're at. Different than in 2005. So go ahead and you can show the annual ones. You can see in 2014 we were slightly down from the big jump in 2013. But you can see the trend of this is new residential homes built in Georgetown Township. It's interesting to see where this keeps going. But right now you're kind of hearing that it's harder to get the builders to even complete the homes and get the contractors there. So it'll be interesting if the trend continues. So. Elections, when we prepared this slide, we had only one election proposed for this year and 4 next year, but now it looks like we're going to have an August school election. It hasn't been officially set yet, but it looks likely. And the only reason I'm showing this, elections take, even what they're, like this doesn't involve the township at all, it takes a tremendous amount of work for our staff. And next year with 4 elections, you know, there's the several months in preparation, training the hundreds of workers who are working for it, training our staff, and then there's the whole process. You're basically seeing all the voters at the same time. You know, all of our citizens, I shouldn't say all the voters, but all the citizens are involved in this process, and it's a very time-consuming process. So next year is going to be very busy, and that's one of the reasons they geared to getting the master plan done, you know, in the off year so that we can get this through. It's kind of trying to work the timing out, but it's nice that it fit in a later election year, but you can tell it's rough. Now in our utility department. This is a refunding we just did, and it's kind of a tough slide if you can see it. It's not that important to see, but the important part I want you to notice is we did this refunding, and of this debt, it's a county debt issued for utilities. 26% of this is our share. So over the life of these bonds, we're going to save $780,000. You can see the savings for all the communities right here. Our portion is $780,000, or a little over $40,000 per year. It's a significant savings by just refunding these bonds. So it'll actually help us offset a potential rate increase. So for utilities. So we'll be able to keep our rates the same for another year. And it's getting a little harder to see here, but they're busy changing our meter remote system. And we've talked about this for, let's see if I can get that a little darker. We've been working on this now for 3 years, and we're at about 6,400. We've doubled in the last year the number that we have installed, so we're still on target to try to get this done in the next 3 years. We'd like to get it done a little bit quicker. You see the lift stations. It's just an example of one that we've improved, but we've been trying to do one each year. We have 20 lift stations, and we're trying to target to keep them up to date, to keep them current. This is probably the biggest source of trouble for the sewer system, of the troubles we've had and issues. We've are looking toward eliminating one this year at Cedar Lake. That's on the agenda today to kind of do that, and in working with the developer to install a deeper sewer through their project to try to eliminate one of these at Cedar Lake. So this you can't really see at all, but that's a dirty sewer pipe. We're sending television cameras down there. I might have to get it darker if you want to, but you probably see it well and good enough. But in 2014, the utility department televised 50,535 feet of sewer lines. That's 9.6 miles. And looking for trouble, looking for problems. And you can see there's little cracks or lines in the pipe. And go ahead and go to the next one. You can see what it looks like after they can make some of the repairs. And that's the whole process, to kind of make sure the lines are going through the whole township on a rotating basis and make sure the lines are functioning. There's no debris and there's no breakdowns in the line at all, or leaks. So trying to kind of prevent that. So a continual problem in our sewer system is illegal sump pump connections, where they take the sump pump, instead of pumping it outside, they pump it into the sanitary sewer. When rain events occur, this is what can cause the major flood. And if you remember the Rush Creek one, this was the major source of these type of pump illegal connections, was the major source to cause that flood in the, trying to think of the Rushmore Lake area. So that was the biggest problem. So they're still on the lookout for these. It's hard to detect them. Obviously, they're in people's basements. We want to train people so they realize it. Some people don't even realize this is illegal and causing the trouble. So we're trying to educate people whenever we can in areas and looking at areas where it's a likely possibility. So.
And Dan, didn't you say that as little as 10 of these can cause an overflow, or in that ballpark?
It's a small number. If you figure those pumps are running hard, sending a ton of water into a sewer line, it was not designed for it. So I don't know what the magic number would be. It could be a few more than that. But yes, if you already have sewer maxing at capacity, and then you send all those pumps filling it up, yes, that can cause the backup. So that rainwater gets in. Still doing our Facebook site. This is 1 year old shot, and we're now just over 2,900 likes on the site. Our online property information system is still popular. We're having, just in the last 30 days, we had over 13,000 individual inquiries looking up water bills or tax bills or different items on our property information system alone. And this is all calls that obviously don't have to come to our office. So people are looking up their own information. Realtors, appraisers are finding the information they need. It's quite a valuable site to us. And again, we try to let people, more and more people know it's there. It's a great tool. So. The cemetery. You can see we sell about the same graves. If you look at this for the last 12 years here or 13 years on there, the grave sales have not changed dramatically. If you see some of these spikes, that's generally because of a price change. Not every case, but like you can see some of this a price was proposed to be changed, and you have some spikes, people buying before. But I don't know what this is, just normal. So, but if you look at the next slide, burials have been pretty steady, but all of a sudden now we have a slight increase, a 15% increase 1 year. It'll be interesting to find out if this is a trend, if it's increasing, or if it's a one-time event. It'll be kind of monitoring this year because, obviously, if you have that kind of growth, that'll affect our staffing and our needs in the cemetery. So, Maplewood Park is busy as ever, and you can tell everyone knows we're applying for a grant here to extend a trail around the lake. Still working with the property owner to see if we can make that happen. And so it's part of our overall park plans for the next few years. And the next slide you can see is the playground. And we're also looking to put a playground I'll go back one more, at Rosewood Park. Not identical to this, but something similar for smaller kids at Rosewood Park, as well as bathrooms and fixing the parking lot there. And some much needed improvements for the bathrooms I think will be quite popular as the year-round usage of that park. So the ice arena, you can see the ice is pink. They had a pink out for Jenison High School, and Jenison played Grand Rapids Christian here as part of their pink out with the basketball team as well. They did it on the same night, so they played hockey first, and then they played Grand Rapids Christian for basketball later that night. They also show people how the Zambonis work. We have bring classes in there, and they can show them kind of how the facility works. And this is Jenison Christian playing broom ball. They haven't tried it. It's little type brooms. They're not real brooms, more like little soft little things there that kids can play, and no skates needed, so the kids are having fun, and quite a few kids on the ice there. All the different activities that take place. Michigan State came and played Grand Valley at the ice arena this year, so that was a big game for them. And if you look at the overall ice revenues, you can see the ice revenues, how they've been increasing. I don't know if you can read the numbers right here. I can make this slide available, or all the slides available, but you can tell the ice arena revenue is increasing. In 2014, if you recall, we did $60,000 worth of extra improvements for the snack bar and for the meeting room. And part of that, with that improvements, we lost $35,000 total. So if we wouldn't have done the improvements, we would have been in the green for $25,000. But with the improvements, we ended up losing a net of $35,000 for the year. So, and you can see the trend is growing, and with the improvements, we hope for that to continue to increase. Some of the things that are happening there as part of those improvements. So, the library has been busy. You can see the summer reading program there in our lower level. They do the book fairs. They're always popular. And one of the things that you can see really dramatically changing is our e-book available. So electronic books. So 2009, we just had audiobooks available. 2010, we started e-books. We just introduced it. And you can tell our collection is dramatically increasing. And as part of that increasing collection now, if you can go to the next slide, you can see this is the circulation of ebooks dramatically expanding in 2014. So it is gaining a lot of popularity of people checking out the books, electronic books, and encourage you to give it a try and take a look and see if there's titles that are of interest. Part of the evaluation process, I just gave an example of some of the programs they're evaluating. You can see that on these particular programs, 98% of the people rated the programs good or excellent, and they're continuing to work to try to improve the programs wherever they can. Senior Center, this is some older pictures, but it's kind of the different activities that they do. And you can see a little bit here of some of the comparison between the last 2 years. Between monthly activities, users are going up, memberships going up slightly. This is average users per month for lunch, so this kind of works out to be about 20 people per day that are having lunch there, so kind of as an average. So you can see that it's increasing. Some of the new classes they've added in 2014. And you can see that the register of riders for the transportation is pretty stable, as well as the number of rides, the average number of rides is pretty stable. Some of the big events that are the townships involved in, we don't coordinate these events, but it obviously takes township staff time and activity. But the slip and slide, you can see the activity there at Rosewood Park. The Memorial Day Parade, these planes were quite a hit. We got a lot of comments, but this is all from the Kennewa Ambucks kind of coordinated all of this. The library is involved in the parade, the Ice Center is involved in the parade, so different township groups are also participate in the parade. The street dance, closing the streets, coordinating that, working that. The chamber basically coordinates this whole event, and it's growing each year, and they want to kind of go a little bit later this year in 2015 and go into some night activity. The fire department's going to do their own report. I didn't leave them out. They're going to do their own report a month from now, so I didn't want to give you duplicates, but they're also at the street dance here. And this is a picture of our new website. We're going to go live shortly, and Minette, if you can show and go to our new website. So if you look at our website, you can see basically this is the new look, and some of the buttons here that open up different menus. If you could go on them, you can see there's different options that light up. And for example, Minette, go onto government, and let's go and click on finance budgets. We've added these there. So if you can scroll up a little bit. You can see here, for example, this is our 2014 audited financial statements. They just came out today. I don't have the printed books for you yet, but if you want to see them, we've just put them on their website today, and we'll get the books to you. They're supposed to be shipping them to us, so they should have them shortly. So if you want to go back, Minette. Go back to our main page. There you go. That's fine. And if you scroll down a little bit now, you can see some buttons, and one of the things is for our meetings. If you can click right here on the meeting info. And this is our new agenda center. And so, for example, scroll down to the township board. And this right here, go ahead. This is if you click right here. You don't have to do it, Minette, but this would bring up today's agenda. And here, there's options to see. If you just look at it, you can see you can get it in PDF, you can get it in HTML, you can get a full packet of the agenda. And this is particularly helpful for those who use it on tablets or other devices. It's much easier to see the way it is currently with our old site. Now, if you can go up slightly, Minette, I want to show the Notify Me button here. Each of you who hasn't done this yet will have to click on this Notify Me button right here. And you can see now, Minette's already got her information in here, so we don't need to change that. But basically, you can select and click on whichever items of agenda you'd like to have emailed to you. Whenever an agenda is prepared in any of these committees or board meetings, that agenda then would get emailed directly to you as soon as the agenda is active. You can also get lists of the calendar. So when an event is added to the calendar, you can get notified of that. Anyone can sign up for this. And this is how, when the agenda is prepared, everybody will get the agenda and they'll be notified of the agenda. So, any questions at all? I'm not going to go through the whole website, but go ahead and take a look. It's going to go live in the next few days for everyone. We're just activating it, so it should be kicking in soon.
I think that part's outstanding. I think the fact that now people can sign up and put their email in and get all that stuff emailed direct to them. We've been asked for that for quite some time, so I think it's
Right. So now it's all part of it. So
And is this going to be posted on the website where people could scroll through the slides you just went through?
yeah, we can put that out there, certainly.
Okay. I mean, because a lot of those, we went kind of quick, but they were, I think, meaty, and people would
Sure.
enjoy being able to look those over.
Yep.
Anything else? You mentioned early in the presentation the elections, 3, possibly 4 next year. Is it $20,000 or $25,000 about per election?
For a full election, it's probably closer to $40,000.
Oh, okay.
Some of the school or lighter elections cost, less because you don't need as many people, but
Right.
for the presidential.
Okay, anything else from the board? If not, thanks very much. That's very enlightening and well done. Appreciate that, Dan. The next item is the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions concerning the agenda? If not, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That's carried. You have before you also, and in your packet, the communications, letters, reports. These are to be received for information and filed. Any board member have any questions about those? Seeing none, we'll go to our first portion of the public comment period. Please step forward and give your name and address if you wish to speak. You have 3 minutes which to speak, and go ahead, the mic is open.
I know your favorite time. Kelly Britton, 7656 Louise Avenue. Thank you, Dan, for all the information. That's something that we've really been looking for, find some information. I have a couple comments. I know one thing you have not discussed yet, but I saw it's on the agenda. It's changing the board meetings to 2 times a month, and I believe one of them is at 4 p.m. and the other one will be at 7:30. I would hope you guys would reconsider a 4 o'clock meeting because many of us cannot attend, and we're very interested, in what's going on in our community. So I would ask that you reconsider a 4 p.m. Board meeting. The other thing I wanted to discuss or bring up was a town hall style meeting. It's been brought up in the past, and it's kind of been a dead issue as of lately. So I was hoping that that was something that you guys could reconsider. Thank you.
Hello, I'm John Kay, 7869 Parkside Court. I have a couple of comments regarding things that were discussed at the March 19th Finance Committee meeting. The one item is regarding an appraisal at 200 Chicago Drive. Apparently the cost is around $2,500. And the minutes say that consensus is to take no action at this time. My question is, why take no action at this time? Why not obtain the appraisal? The appraisal should have been done before you bought the property. You spent millions of dollars on a piece of property, but did not have an appraisal. I think you should have an appraisal done now so that the voters of Georgetown Township know what the value of the property is and what they can expect on their investment. I think some people might think some board members do not want to have an appraisal because they know they overspent on the property, and if an appraisal is done, the board would have to admit maybe they overpaid for the property. It's just what some people may think. So I would surely recommend that you do for $2,500 on a multi-million-dollar investment would, to me, seem like a no-brainer. The other item is about the, which the other lady just mentioned, having only one board meeting a month at 7:30 and the other one at 4 o'clock in the policy for the conduct of meetings. The board says they want public input, but only having one meeting a month that most people at work can actually get to me, kind of limits the public input. It is very difficult for people at work to actually get here at 4 o'clock or 4:30, as opposed to the 7:30. Again, you say you want public input, but if this goes through, what was proposed at the Finance Committee, you're reducing the amount of public input that most people can give. Something that I thought was kind of ironic or so, within days you came up with this new policy of conduct on public meetings, yet for over a month the board or the township has known about the possibility of coming up with a chicken ordinance. In days, if you can come up with one new policy, why can't something be done quicker than the end of June on the chicken ordinance? Thank you.
Jacqueline Larkin, 8294 Cottonwood Drive. And I would like my comments to reflect that I am opposed to you having a only 4 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. board meeting each month. I hope that can actually make it into the minutes so public can read that. It concerns me also that I feel like you're cutting off our participation, and we're trying hard to get involved, and I feel like you're deliberately cutting us off. I also would like to say that I'm very disappointed that you have not decided to get an appraisal on that property on Chicago Drive. You know that's a very important topic to a lot of people around town. And there's a lot of talk about the kind of spending that you're doing and why you're doing it and how much of it you're doing. And to not even get an appraisal on a piece of property before you even bought it is unbelievable to me. And I'd really like to see you guys do better being transparent on all of these things and having those meetings, switching them to 4 and 7:30. And we will no longer have those small meetings that we can go in and hear you guys and get more information. You actually answer our questions there. It's really upsetting. Thank you.
Edward Sosa, 7927 Kinmont Court. I just want to echo some of the comments again tonight. We talked about a township hall-style meeting. We've not heard anything more about that. I want to thank you and I want to commend you that I know that sometimes in some public comments, people have made comments and you've responded back. That's kind of broken your protocol, but that's a good positive thing, and given us some answers to some questions that we had. You know, as a whole in a big picture, I'm just concerned about you. I know you're behind closed doors looking at purchasing more property, those kinds of things. You need to do a better job of keeping community informed. I really don't think you want to keep secrets, but if you don't share things with the community as far as what you're doing, why you're purchasing property and what you're doing, then what community does is they just begin to gossip and come up with their own conclusions and their perceptions of their realities. So I put that on you to try to do a better job of keeping community informed about what you're doing and the voting and the things that you're coming up to. And just remember, 2016, you're up for re-election. People are going to be looking at those kinds of things.
Good evening. My name is Don DeGroot. I'm with Excel Engineering, and Mike DeVries from DeVries Company is here as well. We're here briefly to describe the request for the waiver that's on your agenda, item number 9, for sidewalks along 44th Street. Understanding you have an ordinance that requires sidewalks along developed property, and we certainly understand the importance of that. However, there's some unique circumstances here that I think make it legitimate for requesting this waiver, and we'll hope you'll consider some of those items. I don't know, Minette, would you be able to put that one picture on there that shows the length from 8th Ave to Chicago Drive?
They'll do it when they bring it on their agenda there.
Okay.
They'll do it then.
Okay. There's no sidewalk presently on the south side of 44th Street from 8th Ave to Chicago Drive. You do have the trail that's located on the north side. All the property west of the project that we're looking at here, and I've just brought a sketch of it here, is already developed property between golf course and some single-family and condominiums. There's some challenging crossings of a couple of the drains, the Vandermolen drain and the creek crossing, and we just feel like because of those circumstances, there'd be very little chance that sidewalk would be constructed along that portion of 44th Street. In addition, our development, and I've kind of highlighted on my plan down here, we have incorporated an extensive amount of pedestrian sidewalks that could be used by those that want to access the site, and also from the condominium development to the west, there's a connection there. And so we feel we're providing for the intent of what you're looking for is for walkability, and the development that's, as it's proposed, certainly presents that, and we're just looking for a waiver for the actual sidewalk that's located along the right-of-way of 44th. We'll hope you'll consider that in your review of that waiver request. And if there's any other questions I can answer at the time, I'd be happy to do that.
If there are questions, if you can stick around, when that item comes up on the agenda, the board can certainly feel free to ask your questions.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period, first one. And we'll go to the consent agenda, which is in your packet. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved, supported. Is there any board member that wishes to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is carried. And in fact, we come to the sidewalk waiver request by their DeVries property. I noticed that maybe you can, someone on the committee, Utilities Committee, can explain to me, because they could not come up with a recommendation one way or the other, and that's why it's here before the board.
Well, we deadlocked. There were only two of us there that night to vote, and we deadlocked.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to, honestly, to recuse myself, both from a summary probably as well as from a vote here, because we serve as legal counsel to the applicant in some capacity. So I'll not be voting on this tonight. I would say, though, just from experience on the Utilities Committee, that sometimes the third option, if you will, sometimes in these situations isn't necessarily yes, make them do it now, or no, don't make them do it at all, but the potential too for saying not at this time, or based on future development we reserve the right to require, etc. So for whatever that's worth, I'll just recuse myself from the discussion at this point.
Do you, can you benefit from whether this is approved or not approved?
You're trying to determine whether I have a true conflict? No, I wouldn't personally.
A financial conflict, yeah.
I mean, not less.
Because you can't recuse yourself.
Huh?
You can't recuse yourself unless you can demonstrate to us that you have that you can profit by it, and then the board has to.
There'd be no way to prove that I would profit from this. I guess only indirectly, if he's so happy with me that he sends more work my way, and I'd never know why that was. So,
is it permissible for the board? The board the only ones that can allow someone to recuse themselves. Are there any objection to his, whatever, recusation?
No.
No objections? Okay, thanks for your input.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the sidewalk waiver request as presented in item number 9.
Support.
Moved and supported. Okay, discussion on that. Or at this time also, if you have questions of the presenter, now would be the time to ask them those questions.
I guess perhaps at the north end of the property, it looks like there's an existing trail that comes across to the golf course, and I
Yeah,
believe...
sure. Let me this is a driveway that was going to be a driveway that they didn't want to connect. So this driveway here connects to the condos.
And that driveway exists?
That driveway exists.
Okay.
Their suggestion is this could be a pedestrian path at some point. You need to know this is our major trail going this way and coming across going this way. There are several hundred homes that want to have access to our trail. This would provide, and if you look at the next item of the agenda, if you decide to grant it, it doesn't applicable. But if you don't, this portion is suggested by the committee then connect this and make this a full connection to allow this. Granted, there's other ways that this is built, but this has been proposed 30 years. And so this has not been built. We have sidewalk that dead ends right here. And you know, that would also like to get to this connection, but here is a lot of condos that could access this, just so you know, if you deny this waiver. Or you grant the waiver, I should say. So,
What is this right here?
that is a driveway
Okay, it's a
that was going to go to the condos. It was going to be a service driveway. Originally proposed was it can continue in here as part of the driveway. Instead of having this access, you'd have a service driveway, but now they have an access, so they don't need it, nor do the condos, I think, want the traffic going through that way either.
That driveway exists or is being
This
proposed?
driveway exists.
Okay.
It's built there. So it would be kind of a wide bicycle trail, but it could be used as a bicycle trail if this came in and then would connect to the condos. It's only connecting to one phase. It doesn't connect to all of them, but you're getting a lot of people access to this trail.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just had one kind of a question or a comment. Right now, we're just going to be, it's a dental office just in the very northwest corner. So that's the only portion of the property right now that is going to have anything constructed or developed on it. Everything to the east of that is an unknown to us at this time. We don't know what would be going on there. So in terms of developable frontage, that's the only portion that's being developed at this time. And it's not really it's a destination in terms of people would drive to it. So in terms of your standards of developable frontage, just really that northeast corner. I'm sorry, northwest.
Northwest. It's this building right here. So, but they're asking for a waiver of the whole amount. And if you see what the committee proposed was, if you grant the waiver, that's fine. But if you don't grant the waiver, they want to require it to get it connected here so the connections can be made. Those are the choices that were proposed out of the committee. They couldn't reach a decision because of two people. And if one recusing, there's not an option to make a decision.
I'm a little
Who was
confused.
the other one at the committee?
Connections? I'm confused on that.
I wasn't there.
Well, after they just deadlocked on basically not coming to a decision here to grant the waiver to recommend to you, they only recommend, you guys have to grant them. The decision was, well, it doesn't make sense just to require, as he just proposed, to put in this small little section right here. That doesn't make sense. Then, if we're going to make them do this, we should make them do all of this.
Oh, I see, okay.
And that would be a separate issue. You'd have to schedule a public hearing to require that. You can't just force that without scheduling the public hearing at a subsequent meeting to make the whole portion be required to install, so you have the connection at this time.
So now I'm confused. What does this motion refer to then? I thought the sidewalk waiver request was for the entire portion along
They are asking-
44th.
Yeah, go ahead back to a minute, sorry. They are asking, but they're asking for the entire length. That's what they asked for, in the entire length. If you don't grant it, they're only required to build this section right now. Correct? Just so you guys understand it. But the committee has said, okay, if you're going to require them to build this section right now, we want to also then schedule a public hearing and make them build the entire portion. So this would be connected through here, through their development, to the bicycle path on both sides, connect to 8th Avenue neighborhoods, all be able to get to this area, in this area, to get to this area by walking and through the condos, to open that all up. So I just want to make sure you understood what you were voting on.
Well, that's why I asked for the clarification.
Yes.
So in actuality, if we did not grant their request, we're doing it so that the people in the condos could have a place to walk to get to the trail.
You're connecting them, yes. This is the gap.
And I will say personally, my wife and I lived in the condos there at Glen Eagle, and it was a suicide for us to take our bikes trying to get from the condo project, because we could swing around there, and then ride our bikes on 44th Street where there is no trail, no path, zero. It's very, very unsafe. Obviously, we've had many discussions as far as long-term goals to put sidewalks in, bike paths, for the benefit of the community. And there are a lot of people living in those condos, and beyond the condos, you go to the west of the single-family homes, they all drive through the condo project or walk and work their way to 44th and 8th Avenue. So it's important, it's a safety issue, access to the other trails that we're trying to connect, and therefore I would like to see it, the sidewalks put in.
I agree with Ron. I walk this area frequently. It is very dangerous. The traffic is going very, very quickly. I also think the option of hooking up to the condos is excellent. You've got the trails right on the other side of the road. Frequently when I walk that way, I will cross the road so I can get to the path, so I have something to walk, and then I have to cross back again. I see this as being a positive.
Anyone else? Mr. Crowell, what, you said this is required, this western section?
Well,
I thought I heard that, and if that's the case, why isn't this required?
well, they're only building right here right now. So this is kind of a separate lot as part of this condo.
Oh.
This is a lot. So our ordinance requires, when they're in the area they're building, to put the sidewalk in.
I see.
They're asking for a waiver. While they're asking for a waiver for this, they thought it would make sense to ask for the waiver for the entire portion.
I gotcha.
So they're asking for the entire portion right now.
Okay.
Even though if you deny the waiver, they're only required to build this. And that's why some of the issue is we don't really want a dead-end sidewalk right here. It doesn't make sense, is what the thought was. But then the answer to it doesn't make sense is, well, we could require this to be built now. Another part of our ordinance is allow you to schedule a public hearing to require it to be built. So that's a different portion of the ordinance as opposed to just when they do construction.
Dan, if we granted a waiver request right now, can you come back later and mandate installation?
Well, this has been a question that we've often wrestled with a little bit, but we believe if we can require it with or without for any reason, then yes, our answer is yes to your question, that we believe we can do that. Has that been tested? No, but we believe we could. It's not forever, and you could even put that in the motion that it's temporary if you wanted to make that clear. You know what I mean, as part of it, if you wanted to grant it. So,
Which is seeking that third option that doesn't exist in the motion as stated, of saying perhaps it doesn't make sense to just install that section now, but when the full development would go in, it might make more sense at that point.
well, I look at right here, these are people living right here. They can get right here, I think that's a driveway, yes, but they can't get to the sidewalk. There's sidewalk built literally to right here, to this point, through here. These people can't get to there. So I mean, it is already an issue that we're facing, is trying to get these housing units connected to the trail. So.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to the fact that only a fraction of the development is going to occur right now, as compared to when it gets fully built. So.
You wish to comment something?
I guess we just want to make it clear that we are all about making a pedestrian access even to that corner. It's simply a phased project, and although we understand the desire to get that corner, we're developing this project as the market warrants. But you can see clearly from the sidewalks that we've master planned in the site, the commitment is to get pedestrian access through the development to that corner. It's just in a phased process, and Dan's right, this corner's been undeveloped for a long time, and we just got to find the right people to get interested in that corner, and we found one, and we feel that's a way to get this project a kickstart, and we're committed to doing that. But at this point, to be putting sidewalk along there, although from a practical standpoint for the neighbors to the west and to the south, it makes sense. We've got a lot of development, a lot of construction to do during the next phases, and I'm just afraid of protecting that sidewalk, and we're just asking for a phased process here, and that's basically our request.
Can you clarify what the red lines represent on your drawing? Is that what represents the proposed walks?
Now, there is one that I added and dashed here that we would certainly be offer. We don't have one there right now as part of the approved plan, but we can certainly offer that. So there's more of a direct route from the west to the east for people who are not interested in going into development. But yeah, that's our sidewalk corridors for the development.
Dan, if I can ask as superintendent, what's your recommendation on this?
If your goal is to make the community pedestrian friendly, I would work toward accomplishing your goal.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? And would you restate the motion, please?
Moved by Rich Vanderclough, seconded by Chad Tuttle to approve the sidewalk waiver request.
Okay. Nothing further? You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay?
Opposed?
No.
You were no, and no. Missed, okay. And one abstention, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 to 2. 4 ayes, 2 nays, 1 abstention.
Yeah, John and Ron, correct? Yeah.
John and Ron
Yep.
were
Thank you.
nays.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, next you have the initiate zoning ordinance amendment for medical marijuana dispensaries, and that amendment included in your packet, and this has been recommended by the Finance Committee to adopt the zoning ordinance amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the adoption of the ordinance number 2015-04.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Questions or discussions concerning the amendment?
I'd like to know your perspective, Dale, because I know you've kind of read up on this area more than most of us.
I'm very supportive, of it. Yeah. And this is the dispensary aspect. Now, I don't know if you want to grow it in your house. If you're medically qualified. Of course, we don't have that in Georgetown. No one grows it in their house here. Well, why is law enforcement smiling over there when I say that? That we know of. Yeah, it's in every community. Anything further on the dispensary amendment? Seeing none,
Is this a roll call,
Yes,
Mr.
it is an
Chairman?
ordinance amendment, so would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schwamm?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Skolma?
Yes.
Mr. Valerius?
Yes.
Mr. Wieringa?
Yes.
It is approved.
Thank you. Next is the participation in payment of the Cedar Lake Lift Station. This is as recommended by the BTW Director and the Finance Committee, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the contribution of the amount as stated in the motion for the Cedar Lake Lift Station elimination.
Support.
Been moved and supported, and if you have any questions, both the DPW Director, Denny here, is available to answer them, or the Superintendent.
My question might be, there's a cost savings, I would imagine, with eliminating a lift station Yes, and over time, do we sort of have an idea of how this will pay us back? I mean, we're making a contribution now, but not being responsible for that lift station in the long run is probably a cost savings, right?
To date, it runs about $7,000 a year to operate.
Okay, so it'd take quite some time to...
But then that's just operating, but then there's you have to do a retrofit that would cost more than $100,000 each time due now.
I see.
That we're avoiding.
It's due right now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's repaired. So you're starting with $100,000 savings.
Right.
Plus your operating savings.
And how often do we retrofit? I mean, on
that's
average?
What we have 20, and that's why we were doing one a year. We're kind of on a 20-year cycle.
Yeah.
So it's a long-term payback because the price increased. The board approved this once already as a project, but the cost soared, so.
Yep.
Anything else? The motion is to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is carried. Next is a adoption of a new policy, board rules and conduct of, public meetings. And this is a recommendation from the Finance Committee. You have them. It would be Township Board Policy 2015-01. It takes the place of 2005-01 and 2005-02. I'll entertain a motion to adopt that policy.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the adoption of policy 2015-01, get it supported in order to get discussion going.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Questions, comments, discussion? I'll move in forward. I would like to amend this policy, and it's really a matter of language, because under the statement of the policy, in bold letters, it says for a trial period of 6 months. After period, I would like to insert of up to 6 months. That would be one change I would like. And also under agendas, A, first meeting of the month on the second Monday, I would like to insert after month, first meeting of the month shall be held on the second Monday. Those are my amendment.
Is this the same?
And seeing
Is someone going to support that
I'll
if you're
support that.
making that motion?
Someone.
I'll support that.
That's just for clarification. And my rationale is if at 4 months we're just not happy with it, we have the flexibility to say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore, that we don't want to be locked into a period of 6 months. I hope we would give it that amount of time, but I don't want to be committed to it. But under agenda, the 2 is just for some clarifications, is all. Seeing nothing, all in favor of the amendment?
If I may. Oh, the amendment, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. We're just voting on the amendment right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is carried. Now, the question is open.
I just wondered when I saw this on the agenda, was this the same discussion we had last Monday at our special meeting? I must have totally misunderstood that, because I walked away thinking that what we were talking about was eliminating the 3 subcommittees temporarily to see how this worked, and in its place having a committee of the whole, if you will, in addition to our regular second and fourth Mondays of the month. So I was imagining, oh, okay, I'll have a full meeting replacing the 3 subcommittees, and then I'll have my normal second and fourth Mondays of the month. But that's not, I misunderstood then that, all right.
This is in place of the first meeting.
Right, okay. Well, I guess I felt reluctant about it last week, as I shared, except that it would be on a trial basis. I'm more reluctant when I find out that it would replace one of those meetings. In essence, I guess it would just be like saying, let's eliminate the committees and just move the one meeting we have to an earlier time, that being the first meeting of the month. I'm not sure the objective there. I just know it's hard for me to make those. Sometimes my schedule, that's a personal reason, it's going to be challenging, and if I miss those meetings from time to time, then I'll essentially only see you all once a month, which would significantly cut back. You might like that, Ron, but I mean, I saw the way you looked at it. But anyways, that's a personal reason that it'd be tough for me.
Would you be able to do it like if it was moved to 5 or 6, or?
Then I'd say, what's the difference? Why aren't we just sticking with 7:30? What's the idea of backing up one meeting an hour and a half? But maybe someone could tell me what it would be. I don't know I wasn't part of the Finance Committee in the discussion originally to understand the thought
I
process.
think mainly just because the meetings have been going later, and I don't know, what was that?
You're only on one committee?
I'm on 2, but one that meets regularly. I'm on the mining committee as well.
Okay.
But
you're unable to make that too, or is it just once in a
that
while?
one's at night.
Oh, is it?
As is my other one.
I know your other one is.
Yeah. But, so the thought...
That's understandable.
Yeah. So the thought had been, Carol, you were saying is we need longer than, if we're starting at 7:30, sometimes they're going long enough that we wish we could start sooner. If that was the motivation, I mean, I could do a 6:30, a 7 o'clock
Would be fine with me.
to afford more time. Then it would be more a question of, is there value in eliminating those subcommittees? And I'm just open to hearing what those of you who thought about it think.
The rationale kind of came up for this. I experienced it when I was on the county commission. All their meetings, and they had 6 committees, were during the day. All of them. Which I very much objected to, because, as was stated here, it diminishes the opportunity for the public to be at them when they were all during the day. And I appreciated that, and I could understand some, but all of them, board meetings and committee meetings, were during the day, and I just thought it was wrong. And the comment was, well, and it was true partially, no one really comes to any meetings, and they don't, unless they get upset about something. But then you'd be surprised the number of people, when were charged enough and concerned enough, they got there. But it just shouldn't be that way, and I objected to that very vigorously, but it couldn't be changed. It wouldn't be changed. It could be.
Worth too, you see how that impacts them, because, don't take this wrong, but they're mostly all old. Because they can go to meetings at 2 in the afternoon and 10 a.m. and, you look at the composition, and there aren't a whole lot of 30-somethings,
And I got in a little trouble because that's exactly what I said. So, well, probably most of you guys can't drive at night, and I was one of them.
Mr. Chairman, to Jim's point in terms of the rationale, to operate as a committee of the whole gives each board member the opportunity to hear the discussion. For instance, a service committee that meets and they discuss a particular item, and they make a recommendation to this board, and that particular item then comes to the board, and there may be board members who have questions about the recommendation that was made, whereas if this would have been dealt with in a committee of the whole setting, those questions would have been addressed and answered, and it gives the opportunity for more dialogue about some of those things. That's why it's a trial kind of situation, and I think it's worthy of us to determine that we should try this. In terms of the time, I don't think we ought to get hung up on the time. I think if we want to move it to a later hour or 2 hours or whatever, but given the fact that these particular types of meetings, working as a committee of the whole, are going to take longer periods of time than a regular board meeting would, because that second meeting of the month, then you would have the recommendations and actions that you had agreed on at your work session, and in a sense it could be perfunctory, but perhaps not, but nevertheless then you would move on those recommendations. So I think that's one of the rationales for why we are seeking to do this. Now, is that the best way to do it? I don't know, but I haven't tried the committee of the whole. I was never in favor of operating as a committee of the whole, but given some of the nature of conversations that this board has had in the last several months, some of the things that were decided in committee then are rehashed, if you will, which may be a good thing. I don't particularly think so, but they're rehashed at the board meeting. This way, it would eliminate that and would give free flow of dialogue with the board, and then also there'd be an opportunity at some point for public input and other individuals who would have to come to the board, as they do now to some of the committee meetings. Those individuals could be invited to come and make their presentation, and then they could be excused, and then we could move ahead. So that's, Jim, Mr. Chairman, Jim asked, and that was, in my thinking, that was some of the rationale for it. Whether that's, well, anyway, enough said.
Rich, I agree with your methodology and what you're saying, but when it came out of finance, I was under the assumption that we'd still be meeting twice a month and then have another meeting which would take the place of the other groups, the other committees. And I'm along with Jim. I thought that's what we were talking. You're talking about actually eliminating one of our meeting dates.
Correct. Well, I'm not talking about that. This proposal is talking about that. But
my understanding, I was under the understanding it would take the place. It would be a workshop to dovetail on what Mr. Vanderklag said. I see the committee meetings, I see the agenda, and many times there's articles on there say, wow, I really would like input on that. I really would like some input on it. I can go to those meetings. The superintendent, I always assure him I will not say anything, because if I go, it becomes a board meeting if the three are there. I do occasionally go there and sit, and I say nothing, just to see what's going on. But then the only way I can get my questions answered, well, I can go to the committee, but also I can't go to the committee. I can go to individuals, but there's no opportunity to really go to three individuals. So my questions have to come then at the board meeting, and then I'm wasting the time of three individuals that have been over all this already. And as I mentioned, we don't quite operate that way, but I know in the county, well, this Committee A has an interest in it, and so they voice their interest. Then it goes to Committee B that has an interest. They voice theirs, and it goes to C, was maybe a finance, they have an interest. I happen to be on two of those committees. I hear it all. Then I hear it again at the board meeting. So I think in my perspective, it's a little more expedient to consider this. And as I say, it was tried once at the county level, and it lasted for about 1 month. And then the majority, overwhelming majority, wanted to go back to the traditional 6 or 8 committees they had. Also, in the county, of course, you were paid for every meeting you went to. Here, the treasurer and the clerk and myself don't get paid for board meetings at all. And so, again, you mentioned the older people. Maybe that was a source of income. I don't know. But even with this structure, and it's beside the point, but you know, this is $5,000 or $6,000 less cost for a year.
Mr. Chairman, I would be interested to know if there's any other board member in addition to John and Jim who were under the impression that this would be an additional meeting. Because if there was that confusion, then we should try to clarify that confusion. But I heard Jim express that, and I heard John express that. I don't know if anyone else felt that way.
What was your understanding?
You thought it was, it'd just be interesting.
In place, was that your understanding?
I was not present for that part of the discussion, so I didn't have an understanding one way or the other.
Okay.
I was under the assumption to take the place of the committees we're on, such as I'm on the service committee, and I like this philosophy. I think it's a wonderful way for us to learn together. But if we're eliminating one of the general meetings where we are meeting with the public, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure. I would like to have 2 meetings like we have right now, and then have a meeting where we meet as a group where we can brainstorm together. And then when we bring experts in that would be like talking about our sign out front, we each have a chance to ask them the tough questions. And when you ask the committee members, although they've been diligent, they don't have the resources there with them to answer those technical type questions that we might have, and it makes it difficult to make a solid judgment sometimes. So personally, I would recommend that we keep the 2 meetings we have right now, but I like the idea of us meeting as a whole to discuss and bring in resources.
You want to put that into an amendment to the motion that's on the table?
I would if I felt I had support on it.
Well, you'll find out. If you make the amendment and you don't have support, it dies.
Okay, I would like to make that a amendment, that we'd meet twice a month as we are right now, but that the meeting as a whole would be a separate time which would take the place of our individual meetings.
What, board meeting, what time would you like that?
I think the 4 o'clock is still works well for most people.
What day, what?
I would recommend Monday.
So it'd be either the first or third Monday. Which would be your preference?
I'm open to advice on that. I'm open to what Dan might suggest.
Either's fine. Either's fine. And the third probably has...
It's your amendment, Mr.
I would say the third.
Third Monday, okay. So we would meet regularly, in regular board meetings, the second and fourth, and the third Monday would be a committee of the whole.
Right, but that would eliminate all the other committee meetings.
And remove the committee meetings, okay.
And would that work well for you if we were to have people that would be making presentations? I'm just wondering, is the third any better than the first?
Doesn't matter.
Support.
There's motion support on that.
Mr. Chairman, is that motion or that amendment, isn't that a new, it's not an amendment to this motion, is it? I mean, it's totally new.
Well, you make a good point.
When you read the proposed policy, in other words, it seems to me if the board is in favor of what has been recommended here, that we'd have to vote down the previous motion, and that this would be a new motion, because some of the thing, I'm not sure, but it seems to me that some of the things in this would have to be changed, wouldn't it?
That would clean it up if we did.
I'm just asking. I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Well, yeah, this is a new policy which I think the board can amend. This is the recommended policy. We would have to add it to, I don't know whether it would alter, well, obviously some of it would have to be altered, but it wouldn't take a dramatic change in the policy, would it? No.
So your answer to my question is no, it's not. So we can vote on the amendment and move on.
Right, and then that will be, quote, the new policy.
All right.
If it were to occur. Further questions?
I guess maybe just I'll make an observation if I can. And I wonder if we're even ready to take formal action on this change tonight. I guess one question I would have, and Dan, it looks like the website folks are a little bit ahead of you, and we are live on the new website, because I was going back to look at old agendas, and the information I was looking for was the fact that, the concern about having 2 monthly meetings at 7:30, while it sounds good, it's not a practice we've ever even held ourselves to. If you look back at last year, I'm sure more than half of those Monday night meetings got canceled last year for lack of agenda items. So I would bet we met 2 Monday nights a month, somewhere around 4 or 5 months of last year, and the rest of those months we canceled it for lack of agenda items. But we'll have to wait, because I can't on the website see old agendas to actually audit that information. But you can correct me if you believe I'm wrong on that.
I would say 4 to 6.
We had a lot of special meetings too, though.
So a lot of them were actually canceled, and in lieu of those, we scheduled a lot of 4 o'clock workshops. So we actually behaved as if this policy existed, albeit not in a formal way. But it's really been in line with what our meeting cadence has been for quite some time. So from that perspective, I do see pros in having a 4 o'clock meeting, and that there are some folks who say they'd just as soon not be here after 8 o'clock at night, and most of our meetings do go later. I think the 4 o'clock meetings do allow, albeit a little bit different audience to attend at times, and certainly hasn't precluded many others from being able to attend 4 o'clock meetings as well. I understand there are some who work, and it would be hard for them, and that's why the 4 o'clock meetings are structured in such a way that that's not where deliberation and final action is intended to take place unless it's some time-sensitive issue. Deliberation in recommendation for future action, which allows a 2-week period for consideration, which is something the public does not have now, where now it's typically, it hits a committee and several days later it ends up on a board. So this would actually allow more time for public input, more time for public consideration. If we want to keep the 2 meetings a month in the evening, I don't object per se, just give us the flexibility to keep canceling if in fact we don't have agenda items, which has been our historical practice. So I don't think the policy is out of line with how we've behaved in the past couple of years, and I like the fact that there is a time limit associated with it, that we trial it for 6 months, and if we want to scrap it after a month or 2, so be it.
Anyone else?
Personally, I guess my thought still is that serving in the Utilities Committee, there's a decent amount that we deal with that doesn't come directly to this board. And I've always felt like to that degree we're running interference in handling things that all of you don't have to then. I only can guess that the same occurs in the other committees. So I think it functions well in that respect. I don't think it's repetitious in most respects. We're covering ground that this entire board then doesn't have to cover. So I felt like there has been some efficiencies with that. So when I combine that with just my own personal preferences related to time and in my own schedule, I like the way it is. Maybe one suggestion I'd make is if we'd consider bumping our time to 7 o'clock instead of 7:30, and you could have, Tuesday, Thursday meetings, I'm sorry, 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month at 7 instead of 7:30. You might get out at a sooner hour. And again, I still like the committee practice that we have currently going on, but if you end up wanting to experiment that way, I understand that that's not the end of the world. I just think I like the way it's been functioning, and I felt like it was saving y'all some time to do it in that fashion. So,
any other input?
A quick comment. Jim, I was on the Utilities Committee, and it gives you, when you're on that, it gives you a broad understanding of what's happening in the township. I miss that. I'd like to have that insight. The Finance Committee is the heartbeat. If you're on the Finance Committee, you know what's happening. And not being on that has affected me a great deal. And so to have all that information available for us, if we keep it flowing, I think it'll make all of us much, much wiser, and we'll have a chance to discuss this as the information is being presented to us. It's only temporary. I would like to see us move into this direction, but I sure would like to meet at least twice a month. And I agree with Chad that if it turns out we don't have a full enough agenda, then it can be canceled. But with all the things we have coming up and the challenges we have, I would like to see us give ourselves as many options as possible to deal with these. I'd like you to consider us continue to meeting twice a month and to have an agenda where we meet as a whole.
Any other challenges? The amendment is to continue our regular twice-a-month meeting and convene a workshop on, I think you said the 3rd?
Be the 3rd?
Monday?
At 4 o'clock?
Did you state the time? 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
Okay, and that was seconded by him. Just one comment. It is open if there's a pressing issue. you, as a board, if you get any 2 members, or if myself, if I feel so inclined, you can have 7 meetings a month. It's not limited. So you still have that flexibility. This does not remove that flexibility. Any 2 board members can call a meeting, and the supervisor can call the meeting. So you still have that flexibility, even though, according to this, it is the original motion is 1 workshop and 1 action. You still have the flexibility of going to as many as you want, as long as 2 of you agree.
Say, last comment, I promise. One other thought with the idea of a 7 o'clock meeting time is if you decide to go the route you're talking about and eliminate the subcommittees. So if you started at 7 on the 2 nights of the month, again, you'd be unlikely to deal with an extra half an hour worth of work beyond what you normally would at that meeting by virtue of combining the committees. And I think further, it would allow for one of those meetings to have, town hall like we've talked about at the end and not get us out of here any later than what we've been accustomed to all along, and kind of build that extra half hour in. But
We'll deal with this amendment, and then the time seems to be a factor to you. And so after we deal with this amendment, it certainly would be in order if you want to change the time on the policy. I think it would warrant some discussion.
If this amendment were to pass, could we, at 7:30, to fit Jim's concern, change it to 7 o'clock?
If you want to make another amendment.
Not at this time, but...
Right now,
Trying to talk to
the
Jim here a
amendment
little
will
bit.
make 2 regular board meetings, and a workshop will be the 3rd Monday of the month at 7:30.
no,
7?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, okay, that's the amendment, 4 o'clock. 2 at our regular time at 7:30, the workshop at 4 on the 3rd Monday. Is that clear to the board?
Yep.
Okay, we're voting on the amendment. The amendment is to do that action that was stated. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay?
No.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schwamm.
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle.
No.
Clerk votes no. Dr. Moore.
No.
Mrs. Skolma.
No.
Mr. Valerius.
Yes.
Mr. Wieringa.
No.
Okay, now we're back to the motion. As was stated in the new policy well, we've already talked about the new policy. Or are there any other amendments to that motion? Mr. Wieringa?
Well, is there support for the idea of just 2 meetings a month beginning at 7 o'clock?
I'll support that.
There's one way to find out.
All right, we can find out on a trial basis.
So your amendment is the adoption of this policy with the change of the workshop from 4:30 to 7, and the change of the regular meeting from 7:30 to 7.
Yes, in saying that, I'm not looking for anybody's sympathy, and you vote whatever you think is best. Don't worry about me. I will make work whatever, so. But I can have a preference, and I'm putting it out there.
Okay,
I'll support
that's your
that.
amendment.
Yes.
Change the 2 meetings to 7 o'clock, really, in essence.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's supported by Mrs. Skolma. Discussion on that. Time changes.
Is there any history around why it originally got set at 7:30? I'm just curious, I don't...
Well, yeah, I think
used
so.
to
You
start
had
at
time to milk the
7:45.
cows.
We used to start at 7:45, but we switched to all the other meetings at 7:30, so they'd all be the same. No other reason.
No magic. I think probably a lot of people eat supper or dinner at 6, and yeah, they can finish by 7, but it gives them that half hour leeway. I would guess. What else? As I say, cow milking.
So with this vote, what we're gaining here is we're eliminating
Time changes is all.
but our committee meetings.
Yep. And all this amendment that has been proposed is just changes the times. Otherwise, the policy stays the same.
But we'll no longer have a service committee meeting or the utilities committee meeting?
All this that stays the same, it just changes the time. And
You were
this
just, Mr.
takes
Chairman.
place
I'm
of all
sorry.
committee meetings.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify your question, the amendment now is strictly for time.
Okay.
And then if that passes or fails, then we go back to the original motion, correct? And that would be on the policy.
Thank you.
Right. Any question on the times? If not, all in favor of scheduling both board meetings at 7 o'clock PM, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. Would you call the roll again?
Mr. Schwamm?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
No.
Clerk votes no.
No.
Yes.
Mrs. Skolma?
Yes.
Mr. Wieringa?
Yes.
Carries. Yeah, 3-4. Okay, so that will be reflected now. Now the new Township Board Policy 2015-01. The only change in this is the times. The regular meeting was scheduled 7:30, and the workshop was at 4. Now both of them will be at 7 o'clock. Now, is there any further discussion on the policy?
Yeah, don't find it strange if I now vote against this still, because I prefer to keep the committees. I was simply trying to posit it for the right time should I lose this vote. So don't think it's strange or odd, but I'm going to vote against this because I still like the committee that we have. So
I got it. That's acceptable.
I agree with Jim. I think we should continue the committees if this is not going to be an extra meeting.
Anything further? Okay, I'll call for the question of approval of Township Board Policy 2015-01 as amended.
Can we call a roll call vote just to...
Sure. Would you call the roll, please?
Wouldn't that be nice? Mr. Wieringa?
no.
Mr. Verius?
Yes.
Mrs. Skolma?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Mr. Tuttle?
No.
And Mr. Schwamm?
No.
That's for
It is carried.
Both at 7.
Now, request for the fire department to purchase a pickup truck as recommended by the Services Committee. I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved?
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions, discussion?
You know, we have 3 items here that all involve the fire department, this one and the next 2. Is it necessary, you think, in any way for the chief to address, or I mean, we can all read it? I would defer to you guys if you want to hear.
He's ready if you have
It
questions.
was already addressed in committee.
Oh, there you go. All right. I'm sure you did a very good job.
He did. If you'd
Would you
like to hear it, he'd
Certainly
probably
the
share.
staff is here, yes.
Oh, he did that, though, in committee.
Yeah, but,
Okay.
but what, referencing to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
But some other people may would like to know some
I
things.
think it'd be nice.
Yeah. In fact, Daniel, why don't you address all 3? And we won't make you keep getting up and down up your seat.
Thank you.
What I'm bringing before you tonight is a purchase of a new 2015 GMC pickup. You have before you first the old truck. On the front it's got 80,000, a little more than 200 miles, I believe, on it. That picture was taken probably 5 or 6 years ago, so if you want to go to the next page, there's the underside of that truck in the area of the rocker panels. Due to the wear and tear of that thing, even our trucks, the DPW trucks, they take quite a beating plowing snow and all the other operations that they do. This truck and the rocker panels, as you see, we're about ready to get holes in the floorboard. And the truck, it runs good. I think down the road we could have some transmission issues with it. But the next page is pretty much the inside of the cab. That cab was laid out before they really went to a four-door style cab, so we had a sell a cab and a half. What this truck does during the day, it's our full-time maintenance personnel who run this. He's responsible for summertime mowing lawns, pulling a trailer, wintertime plowing snow. So again, the truck does take quite a beating. In the cab there is a lot of our medical equipment. The truck is licensed by the state of Michigan to respond to medicals, as is 6 of our other trucks. Pursuing a new truck, as you go to the back page, I'm going to use another department's pickup truck, and that's Georgetown Township truck. The truck that we are asking for approval on is pretty much an answer to that. What we'd like to do on the new truck is in that picture, put a cap on the back. And then you see on the side picture, it's got some pull-up doors with shelving in there where we can load all that medical equipment in there. Thus freeing up the back seats for additional personnel. Once in service, I would like to run this out of Station 2 on Church Street on all medical. It's a lot better knowing that smaller truck than it is the bigger medium rescue that is down there. The bigger trucks obviously would respond once we get into a car accident situation and that type of thing. But this one ultimately would be the first vehicle out on medical.
Great presentation. We didn't even have the pictures in committee.
We like pictures.
Dan, didn't you say also this could be used for plowing?
This will have a plow on it down the road. We didn't put it in the budget now. That's something we usually do down the road.
Okay.
Would it be all right for him to address the next 2 items while he's up there?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea, and then you can open the floor to one at a time if you have questions.
The next was the Zodiac inflatable boat and motor, and then the cargo trailer, if that's okay.
If you got a motion for this part already.
Okay, why don't we take one by one, but don't go too far. Do you have any questions for the chief? And what is the bed of the present truck? What's in there?
Right now, there's an aluminum tray that pulls bolted down the front and extends out the back of the truck. He puts his, if he's mowing lawn, he puts his blowers on there and this type of stuff. Any FPGAs or whatever have to be transferred to another station to station. He's got enough room in the back there to put that type of...
Why does he pack it all in the back seat then?
Pack it all in the back?
Yeah, when he's got a big bed.
No, he does use the back of the bed.
Okay. Let's see, who drives this truck?
Matt.
Matt. Is he EMS certified?
He is.
Okay.
He is.
Dan, what determines, because you said this would be possibly a medical first on scene, what determines whether this goes out, the rescue truck goes out, or they both go out?
Well, basically, like I said, on a regular medical to an assigned address, it would be just that vehicle. The first 4 guys would get to the station, jump in it, and they take off. Or if you get into a car accident, spill cleanup, then it switches over to the bigger trucks. All our extrication equipment are on the frontline engines. The medium rescue is also equipped with stabilization equipment, airbags that you guys approved last year. Those are all on there. That's when the big trucks kind of respond.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't there be some concern with a smaller truck if the new trailer came into being, that it would, of its ability to pull that and handle that?
Right. The newer truck is a little bit bigger, beefier truck, and it would handle that diagram.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. Okay, next is the request for the Zodiac.
I would move to approve the bid for the inflatable boat motor.
Support.
Moved and supported. another presentation, please, Daniel.
Taking you back a ways, probably 25 to 30 years ago, we implemented the dive team. We went with we had the smaller aluminum boat, which you'll see in a minute, up here on our dive trailer. And probably 15 years ago, we bought a jet boat, and that is currently housed up at Station 3 on 36. The purpose of the jet boat versus the purpose of this boat, we run dual operations, whether it be a smaller inland lake or a pond, and then also the Grand River, your larger lakes, your Cedar Lakes, your Georgetown shores, Maplewood Lake if we'd ever have to go on there. Anywhere where we can get that bigger boat too with a launch, we will use that boat. This inflatable boat will basically pick up the other half of our operations. And basically it's a soft bottom boat that will be deflated and kept on whatever dive trailer we have, whether it's a new one or the old one. But they'll be deflated at all times, kept in a suitcase. It comes with a motor, and should we need to deploy it, the salesman was out earlier last summer and kind of demoed the boat. And he had it set up to water in about 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. So again, this will be the second half of our operations. And that's not to say if we get a big enough lake, Georgetown shores, whatever, both boats would be in the water. This is the size of the boat would probably handle, obviously, the driver or the operator of the motor, and then also a couple divers. The motor on this thing is not a prop motor. I did not want a prop if we're putting divers underneath it. This is more of a jet boat motor. So same as the motor on the jet boat at Station 3.
Dan, in the service committee, you talked about in-kind service that we're doing for other municipalities, and it was quite extensive and I think kind of surprised us. Could you share that with the rest of us?
Sure. We utilize mutual aid, automatic aid quite a bit with our neighboring municipalities. They have resources we have that they don't have, as we have resources they don't have. And I'll take you back a week ago yesterday where the request was made out of Allendale to respond to Grand River and Lake Michigan Drive on 3 subjects stuck on an island that had fallen in the water. Other than the county boats, I think they're still in storage yet. Our boat is really the only boat that's available that we can get to in a hurry. Grand Valley does have boats, but there was an issue finding keys and this type thing. But so they did call us up, and the guys were able to get them off the island and get them to the medical units that were there. A couple of them did get transported to downtown for hypothermia. So I know sometimes the question's asked, our resources run here, our resources run there. It's a joint effort between all municipalities. Mutual aid, automatic aid has been in place well longer than I've been on this department. And it's something that each department relies heavily on. And so I would hate to see anything happen to that. You say, when do they come to us? The house fire we had a couple weeks ago on Teakwood. We had Allendale there, we had Blendon there, and we had Granville there. So if you do the numbers on it, it evens itself out pretty close. But mutual aid and automatic aid is a very good thing.
So you don't feel we're being taken advantage of on our dive team?
Pardon?
You don't feel we're being taken advantage of?
No, what I've been working on at the chief's level with
with the other 20 fire chiefs in Ottawa County is for them to try and, I guess I put it in, stand on your own feet and take care of your own municipality. You know, you got Holland Park, Holland Township with the Lake Michigan, with Lake Macatawa there, that they're not more proactive in implementing their own divers, which hopefully we're going to get changed. It's in the process now of soliciting these departments to see what interest we can get as far as implementing divers out of each municipality. It'd be nice to get 4 divers on each municipality. At that point, we would go back to a quadrant-style diving, which we obviously would be in the southeast quadrant. And so we'd be sitting with our divers, and then the other few divers around from the other departments, we'd be sitting good here that hopefully we would not have to leave. And I do have it set up that in the event we did have to run to Allendale, not everything goes. We do keep resources back in the event of a water situation here.
Anything further? Okay, the motion is just to approve the purchase of the Zodiac for $16,960. No further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. And then the last one is the purchase of a 24-foot cargo trailer for the dive team.
I would make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the request as presented in the motion.
Support.
Moved and supported. In just a moment as Mr. Hamming is through, he can address this. Then you can ask some questions if you need to.
Okay, what you have before you now is the current dive trailer that's in service at Station 2 on Church Street. As you can see, the aluminum boat on top, that was the first boat that we ever acquired. And the boat is equipped with 2 oars, no motor. And as far as the trailer, you can see on the second picture, I believe, the compartmentation on it, being a small trailer, how unorganized is it because of lack of compartment space. The new trailer is 24-foot V-nose trailer. It'll have a door up in the V-nose where it drops down. You'll have one on the passenger side, a service door, and then the back end of the trailer will drop down as well. All of our equipment will be put inside by means of acquiring lockers for each diver's gear. All of our current stuff, obviously, in the dive trailer will be put on there, along with the boat that was just approved. So this trailer, I think, is coming up on 35 years old that we've had this thing. So it's served us well, but it's obviously time to upgrade.
Questions, comments? What's the size of the current trailer?
Pardon?
Size of the current trailer?
I think it's like a 14-foot trailer.
They're both approximately the new and the old, same width, or?
Same width, yep.
Okay. Probably 7 feet?
8'6".
8'6".
That's on the inside wall to wall.
Okay.
Chief, I assume the old trailer, just like the old pickup truck, we'll try to sell for best value.
Right, so like I mentioned earlier, some of these municipalities looking to put on divers, it'd be a nice trailer for them to pick up if they're looking to get into diving.
Any further questions? Comments? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we come to the second public comment. Anyone wishes to address the board, same rules apply. Please step up and state your comments.
Hello,
John?
John Cade, 7869 Parkside.
You haven't moved since you talked, huh? Okay,
I
good.
haven't moved in the past hour. I do appreciate that the two meetings will be at 7 o'clock, if not 7:30, but 7 o'clock is close, and not having one at 4 o'clock. During the goal-setting meeting, it was talked about having a town hall type meeting with public input whenever that is scheduled, and hopefully it will be soon, that I'd also be at 7 o'clock when more people can attend it than at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Jacqueline Larkin, 8294 Cottonwood Drive. I also would like to thank you for making sure that the two meetings will be occurring at a time that people can attend. I know there's a lot of people that appreciate that. I'm not sure how you're going to get 5 hours worth of meeting time crammed into 2 hours, which is what you're proposing here, dropping 3 meetings and combining it with another 2-hour meeting into just probably about 2 hours to 3 hours, 7 to 9, 7 to 10. So I wish you luck with that. I appreciated hearing a lot of your reasoning behind why you'd like to put these together, and we'll all see how well that goes. And I'm glad to hear that it will be a temporary situation, or it will be evaluated, and it can be changed if it doesn't work out. So I'd like to thank you for that, and I had another point, and I don't remember what it is, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Deb. Anything further? If not, we'll go on to then our item 17, discussion and general information.
The seller was not going to sell for less than $3 million, regardless what the appraised value would indicate. 2, there was a tenant that was going to move in, and we were concerned about that. 3, KFC then indicated that they were not happy with the current landlord and that they were looking at possibly closing the operations of KFC and relocating. 4, obviously, we've had an issue for many, many years being an eyesore, so we made the decision to move forward and take care of that problem. And based on a survey that we had high percentages of people that indicated that this should be done. The question comes today now is, and this is an update for the board, Mr. Nelson, who is a prospective buyer who's made an offer on this property, is interested in sitting down with this board. He's interested in sitting down to reevaluate the value, meaning if we were to provide a bank appraisal or some type of an appraisal, that he would reevaluate his offer that he made to us originally. 2, there are some of us, not myself, that have an issue of pole barn construction with Mr. Nelson. I talked to Chris today, and Mr. Nelson once again is willing to sit down with this board and explore options of dressing up the building. And a good example that Chris sent an email to me is Myers on East Beltline and Knapp, where basically it's a square building, but in front they've done a beautiful job, different levels, different windows, different awnings, very, very impressive, much like the Myers on 28th Street in Cascade. I cannot convince some of you that you don't like the use. Well, since I graduated in 1978 in Jenison, what I've seen in the township for all the years that I've lived here is that the business district has continued to decline. We have someone that wants to put up a 100,000 square foot indoor park, which would be very family orientated. In my opinion, that would benefit the vacancy of Perkins. Because what happens when you put a big indoor family park? They got to eat. And perhaps someone may look at the Perkins building and reevaluate, saying, with the increased traffic load, that maybe this is a place to open. This may also help with the vacancy of Hobby Lobby. What this township needs more than anything else, and has been lacking for 20-plus years, is development. We as a board cannot shut down the opportunity of a new business moving in because we don't like the use. Some of us want maybe a Bob Evans to move in, all brick, really nice, really sharp, so let's go ahead and do that. But guess what? With every business, every opportunity, there's a risk. And they built a Bob Evans in Granville, and it closed in 2 years. You look at Radio Shack, who's been in this community for 20-plus years. Surprise, surprise, Radio Shack's in bankruptcy. It doesn't matter what type of business that you put in, you take the risk of possibly closing up one day. But what's very interesting to me from Mr. Nelson's point of view is that he's willing to pay cash, $1.1 million. Not a mortgage, not 20% down, cash. All of you saw his portfolio and the real estate that he owns. Very, very impressive. This is an opportunity for us to move forward, to stimulate some growth in the community. And let me remind you, there are 57 businesses for sale or for lease. And so some of us say, boy, we better pass on the first offer because there's another one coming. I don't know about you, but I've been in this community for a long, long time. And when I drive through the community, what I see is vacant, 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 for sale, for sale, for sale. And perhaps with working with Mr. Nelson, coming to a compromise, that this will stimulate growth. This is equivalent to 10 businesses with 10,000 square feet. And my hope, and perhaps someone will make a motion here, that we order the appraisal at a cost of $2,500 or less so that we can determine what fair market value of this property, whether it's a sale to Mr. Nelson or any other future buyer. 2, tell Mr. Nelson time out, because guess what he's doing? He's looking for other real estate. And it's not in Georgetown Township. I cannot imagine someone else, Wyoming, Granville, Hudsonville, Allendale, if Mr. Nelson were to come with his proposal and say, we're not interested. If you were to take the votes of not this board, but I were to go to every elementary school, junior high, and high school and saying we're having an indoor park where they have birthday parties, gymnastics, would you like to see that be built? Maybe none of you would like to see it be built, but every kid would like to see it built. And what's more important is this is a destination. For the first time, you'll have people come from other areas to the township to use this facility, and that will bring dollars into the community. So what I'm asking all of you is to reevaluate on having an appraisal order immediately, to allow Chris to contact Mr. Nelson, that we would at least like to sit down and see if we can work out our differences, whether it be price, structure, or even possibly use, before we lose him to another community. We need to act now.
Anyone else?
I think there's no reason we shouldn't have an appraisal ordered, whether I agree with everything else Ron said or not. I think an appraisal seems like a proper step. I know that that was part of what Collier's had to do of its own accord, and I think that's part of what we relied upon with them in evaluating what they felt the property was worth and where they should list it to begin with. But I don't have a strong opposition personally to having an appraisal ordered.
Well, why don't we, would it be finance? We'll have finance committee look at it and see whether they want an appraisal.
We got rid of that though, but it'll just it'll be at the next workshop. We changed the meetings.
Next workshop.
I just want to caution the board once again, or what Jim just said, and I appreciate that. Yeah. In any real estate transaction, when you have a ready, willing, and able buyer, cash at $1.1 million, we have already postponed well over 30 days. And he's looking elsewhere. You want that appraisal today, assuming you want to sit down with Mr. Nelson, because he's saying provide an appraisal and let's sit down.
Ron, did we have this offer 4 or 5 months ago? Or something similar, that they were interested in this property before we even went to the realtors? There was an interest in this property from that particular company?
I'm not aware of that.
I believe there was. And the Colliers folks had told us that the property's worth about twice as much. And then I'd asked you the last time, was this a bait and switch? And we've got some tough questions here.
I'm going to answer that question because I want to protect the real estate industry. By no means was this a bait and switch on his part. What has happened in many real estate transactions, they give their best opinion to say, this is what we feel value is. Okay? And values vary quite a bit from all three companies, which is amazing. How can three different companies be in the real estate business with vacant land and have such a dramatic value difference? The point is, they're a very good company, they have a very good reputation, they have a great marketing program. We need to assist them with a sales tool, and it's called a professional appraisal. Because now he can go back and say, here are the comps you provide, Mr. Nelson, but here's what I have, a professional appraisal indicating the value to be, as an example, $2 million. Now we can sit down and talk numbers. It's a small dollar amount to pay, $2,500, to determine that this is the value.
But should this be the job of the superintendent to negotiate for us? And would Dan find this helpful? Or would it be a hindrance, since we've just had an estimate done by Colliers of what they thought it was worth?
The estimate from Colliers, from my point of view, if I'm a buyer or if you were a buyer, is irrelevant to me.
But are we micromanaging what should be done by our management here at the township?
No.
No, you set the parameters.
We would hire a professional appraisal, and we would forward that to the real estate company, and they would negotiate at that point.
I have maybe just some observations, because I don't know, part of me's stunned, part of me has questions. I've never seen I've never seen such a presentation to benefit a single for-profit business before, so I've got questions from that. I'm just shocked from that perspective, but I have bought a lot of commercial appraisals in my career. And what I have found is when you buy the appraisals, the very first thing the appraiser wants to know is what's the intended use of the property. For the very reason of that intended use greatly determines the value of the property. If the property were to be used as open farmland, it obviously has a much different valuation than if it was used for a high-rise office building, versus if it were used for a single-story retail establishment, versus were it used for a gas station. So from that perspective, I don't know that we're prepared to answer that question, were we to go out and go after the appraisal to tell the appraiser, well, here's what the intended use of the property would be. Because I think we all envision perhaps multiple uses that could happen on that property, knowing all of those uses will sway the overall value of what the appraiser is going to tell us the property is worth. So that's my only hesitation on obtaining an appraisal. I'm not hesitant, but we need to be prepared to answer that question for the appraiser if we're going to go and pay somebody for an appraisal. And then that's going to generate the whole dialogue of, well, should we tell the appraiser to assume it's exactly what Mr. Nelson has proposed for the property, or should we tell him to assume something different? And if it's not a price Mr. Nelson likes, and we assume something different, he's going to disregard whatever the number is anyways. As far as sitting down and dialoguing with them, I've said before, I don't oppose that. I'm certainly open to participating in that. Ron, you would kind of try to bully us into making a decision, but you've got the exact same authority I do. So you can sit down with Mr. Nelson, or you can make a motion for us to obtain appraisal, or you can make a motion for us to do something with the property as well. You don't have to put it on us to, and act like, we're somehow denigrating the potential sale or something. You've got the same authority I do when it comes to that. As far as, is this the perfect use for the property? Perhaps, but perhaps at the right price, and maybe that's what needs to be vetted out further. So, it's obvious that, Mr. Nelson has wooed you and has enamored you in such a way that you want to encourage us to sell the property, but I don't think the rest of us are there at that point. But if somebody wants to set up an opportunity for him to come in and sit down with several of the board members or the whole board, certainly he's welcome to come to one of our upcoming meetings at 7 o'clock, and if we want to go into session to discuss property, we can certainly do that. That might be a very appropriate use of that time. And so I'm open to it, but I'm not prepared to sit here tonight and say, yeah, let's spend money on a commercial appraisal, or let's just turn around and sell the property.
To extend that just a little bit, again, you and one other board member can call a separate board meeting, which the agenda is your responsibility to establish. Any other comments?
Can I make a motion that we invite Mr. Nelson to come here to discuss his offer with us?
You can, but I would warn the board that we set an agenda, and the purpose of the agenda is so things don't surprise any board members, and that if you feel it's really an emergency, then it's probably appropriate for you to make a motion. If it isn't, then it's questionable whether a motion is appropriate as addressed in our board rules.
I make a motion that we invite Mr. Nelson as soon as possible to sit down with the board to discuss the purchase of 200 Chicago Drive.
To add that to the agenda. Is there support? Okay, the motion dies for lack of support.
I'll support it.
Okay, supported. Discussion on the motion. I will advise the board it takes a 2/3 vote to add this to the agenda.
If you don't invite him soon, you're going to lose him. He's shopping elsewhere.
Mr. Chairman, I think the point needs to be made again. When we vote, we're not voting on what Mr. Valerius is proposing, are we? Are we only voting to add it to our agenda and then vote?
The vote will be really, Ron, if it's secretary, is to add it to the agenda. Then this property, or the request for appraisal, and also him visiting here, those two items then would become a separate motion on the agenda.
Right, because I didn't hear any appraisal mentioned in what was stated previously.
Well, we'll see that, but let's vote whether it's added to the agenda or not. The vote is to add this issue to the agenda.
So Ron, you'd be recommending that he would come here, and we'd probably go in closed session?
This will be the motion. Right now, the motion is to add this item to the agenda. We're going to find out, Ron will clarify what the action item will be once it's on the agenda. So it's been moved and seconded to add this to the agenda. All in favor of adding it to the agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
To call the roll.
Mr. Schwamm?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Clerk votes no.
No.
Yes.
Ms. Skalma? Mr. Valerius?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Wieringa?
That's 5, I believe that's the 2/3, correct? Okay, it is on the agenda. Now, a motion would be in order. Seeing it's on the agenda, a motion is in order.
Can I make
What you want to do?
My first motion is that we would call Mr. Nelson to invite him back here to discuss the purchase of 200 Chicago Drive. My second motion would be that we order a professional appraisal so that we can have that available at that meeting. And I understand what Chad's talking about, and I'd be happy to assist in that situation of ordering appraisal, answering those questions to the appraiser, and coming up with a strategy as far as value.
Okay, the first motion then, as I understand it, is to invite Mr. Nelson here for discussion and information. That's a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Motion, support. Any discussion on that motion?
I guess I would say about that, if he came, just so I understand, would that take place in closed session, open session?
Open session.
Open session, okay.
Yeah.
And then my next point would be, is if I'm in favor of him coming, it's not because I feel as Ron does that there's somehow this impulse, this urgency that if we don't do this, we're just blowing it. But more out of the interest of saying, I'll listen. If he's as impressive financially as Ron says he is, maybe he can up his offer double or whatever. But I'll listen.
Anything further? This motion is to invite Mr. Nelson to a presentation. Probably be at the next one if he can make it. If he can't, well, have to work out a time. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Were there any other nays than the two that I heard? Okay, so he will be invited. Now, the second motion, as I understand it, is to authorize...
They're asking who voted.
No.
I did.
I did.
That one. Okay, thank you.
Next is the
To order a professional
appraisal. So the motion is to order a professional appraisal for 200 Chicago Drive. That's the motion.
And I want to explain something that you may...
Not until the motion is on the table.
I'll support.
Moved and supported. Okay, it's your motion. Now you can.
I'd like to explain that Mr. Nelson has come out and said he's willing to look at a different price, provide an appraisal or some type of documentation. Obviously, he doesn't live here, so he wouldn't know. So I think it's our responsibility, whether it be for this sale or any other future sale, because it can work both ways. The appraisal can come back high, Merry Christmas. The appraisal could come back very, very low. We don't use that in negotiating or provide that. But now we at least know the value of the property and we have a sales tool to move forward.
I think the appraisal would become public, wouldn't it? It wouldn't, so we don't talk about it. That's off the table.
Yes.
If it comes in low, Mr. Nelson, has a right to know.
Right, it would be a public document. But we can get, when we ask the appraisal, we'll ask for the highest and best likely legal use. So that's will be the appraisal we'll ask for, whatever use was legally allowed there and potentially likely.
We just banned medical marijuana dispensaries earlier, right?
Correct.
Shoot, I wanted to put one of those
Well,
up.
yeah, that's kind of my thing, because I would like something with sustainability there. It was great when we got a Kmart in there, but it didn't last. The skateboards were great, parks. They're disappearing. Anyone remember racquetball? Man, that swept the country.
Yeah.
Where are they? That's my concern. But appraisal, as I say, I'm sure if you got two appraisers, they'd be exactly the same, so I don't care.
That's facetious, right?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I've only under one contract, and it was that the two parties don't agree. You should get your own appraisal. If you don't agree, you get a third.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not opposed. In fact, I'll vote in favor of the appraisal. It's probably a small price to pay. But let me also add that I'm very uncomfortable going down this road. I think it sets a very bad precedent for this board in the action we just took. I know I voted no. We can't undo that at this point, but I'm very uncomfortable, and I just want to voice that. I think I just don't like the road that we're going down in handling some of these issues, and, but I will vote in favor of the appraisal because I think everyone else will too, so.
What do you mean, Rich? Uncomfortable with what specifically, though?
I think inviting an individual who's made an offer on a piece of property, inviting someone to come, he obviously, was his desire. If he had other things that he wanted to present to us, he could have done that through the agent, through Chris. And let's assume, for sake of comment, that we vote that we're not going to accept his offer, or we have already voted that. We have declined his offer. It's off the table, literally. But now he's going to come to us and he's going to try to convince us that we made a mistake. I don't like that. I think it's very poor business, and I just think it's a very poor precedent that we're setting, and I'm very uncomfortable with it.
I understand Rich's position. You know, we made an offer. He first made an offer. We countered, and usually then, if the counter is not acceptable, you counter the other offer. You negotiate that price. But it was, no, I want to talk to the board. In other words, what frightens me, to take it a little bit further, I'm going to tell you why that property is not worth that. I'm going to convince you that it's worth what I said it is. And, you know, it's going to happen, so I'll attend, but it's a very unusual process. Usually there's an offer, there's a counter, then there's a counter, and there's a counter, or you say yes or no. He has said no, but I want to talk to you. Well, that's where we are. He said, we said this, he said this. What he wants to do is convince you that you are way off base on your offer. And he certainly can, because I don't have the expertise he has.
Ron, we talked about the possibility of a medical facility there. We just put it on the market. I would like to give it a chance. And Colliers had said to us they wanted to market us throughout the United States. They've been going to these conventions. We've barely given it a chance. That's my major concern. The potential for that property, it's an excellent location.
Let's put away the appraisal, and then we can talk these other things that you still have concerns. So the motion and support it is to hire an appraiser and have that property appraised professionally. So is there any discussion on that?
Can I just offer my support for what Dan said and make sure that we have consensus that the appraisal will be for the highest and best legal use?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And that there wouldn't be input from Ron or anyone else with that appraiser, or Mr. Nelson. That appraiser doesn't need to know what offer's been made, or...
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the motion. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. It is carried. Now, if you have other comments about the property or the process or anything else.
You know, I probably wouldn't have initiated him coming to the meeting, but his coming isn't going to change the minds of this board if all he's coming to do is tell us why we're backward and don't understand why his offer is a good offer. I would like to think there might even be an opportunity to push him in a different direction. Hey, why do you want that piece? Why not something smaller and to the edge? Or, do you know we have Hobby Lobby? I'm sure you do. Why aren't you building there? I mean, love to see him go, why not knock that building down and build it, or retrofit what you have already? Yeah, I wouldn't mind having an opportunity with a guy like that and maybe push him in a direction that we could live with.
Right down your bailiwick, an attorney, cross-examine, right?
So less about him changing my mind, maybe more about changing his, you know?
Mr. Chairman, based on what Jim just said, isn't that what we're paying our representative from Collier to do for us, to ask those kinds of questions? I thought that's, I don't know, maybe I don't understand the process. It just seems like we hired someone to do that. And now we're saying, well, we're going to really do it Because we don't think you're doing it the way that we want you to. I don't think that's what we're saying. I hope that's not what we're saying, but I have a real issue with this. I really do.
And I tend to more agree with Rich. I mean, I respect the folks from Colliers. I also recognize we've got a contract that only pays them when it sells.
True.
I would like to know more what Colliers is doing and how many people how many restaurants they've contacted concerning 200 Baldwin. They've got our property out by the ice rink. What have they done with that so far to market it? What kind of literature are they using? I'd like more answers, and it seems that they're leaning in this direction, and I'm concerned about how well we're being marketed.
Yeah, I think Chris, I think, has let us know that we're welcome to contact him individually or as a board to ask him these questions.
I have emailed him.
Good.
I've had partial
reply?
response.
I just want to reply to Rich and Chad just a little bit. And me being in the real estate business, there's what I would call the normal procedure in a real estate transaction. And there are times that they're not always normal. But the most important thing that I can see at this point is we're attempting to save the buyer to come back to the table and hopefully negotiate something that will be beneficial and agreeable to both parties. And if that doesn't happen, we've done our best. We haven't lost anything. In the meanwhile, we got very educated how this process can happen. And so when the next offer comes in, we're better prepared, and we now have a professional appraisal for the first time so that we have some evidence so that we can talk intelligently what the value of the property is. And perhaps do what you just talked about, John, and go back to Chris and say, show me your list of different restaurants, that type of thing. But we start with this. We have a buyer knocking at the door. Let's see if he's a real buyer and that we can get him up in price.
Mr. Chairman, just to respond, Ron, I appreciate your comments, but respectfully, I disagree.
That's fine.
Anything further? It doesn't have to be about this. It can be about anything. We're under discussion and general information.
If I could throw out a couple things real quick. I know it's getting late, but when Joe Bush was here, he mentioned about Rush Creek and the opportunity to clean up Rush Creek. I walked it this weekend. There's tremendous potential there, but there's a lot of debris. There's people camping down there, found some gun shells and so forth. I think it would be smart to have that area where you had a free flow of water. There's a pile of brush on our property there by Kmart that's it's logs that have been there for many years, 30, 40 feet long, 10 feet high. But as I mentioned this to Dan said he would like to have at least 4 votes from the board to recommend to Joe that we have Rush Creek cleaned to the point that the water's flowing properly and that our easement there is cleared out. I'm wondering if I could get support that Dan could pursue this.
The work is the responsibility of the Drain Commissioner's office?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. They coordinate the work.
They coordinate the work, but we pay for the work?
Yes.
Okay.
We would pay probably 80%.
How much would we be talking, Dan? Do you have any idea?
Depends how far you go, but clearing trees out is not that expensive if that's,
And if this could be done, I think it would give people a better vision of what the area looks like behind the old Kmart site, to see that cleared out for a potential walkway someday. And this is the time of year, I don't know if we can get on their schedule this early, but I would think this time would be much, much easier to clean up. But there was people camping, there's a tent back there last fall, it's still there. People are hunting there on a regular basis.
Actually, fall is better for cleaning out rivers because now you got the high water.
It's in good shape right now.
Understanding that the purpose of the creek is to alleviate any potential flooding that would happen further upstream, I'm supportive of allowing and paying our portion for the Drain Commissioner's office, clearing it out. I do believe hunting that creek would be illegal, and I'm sure the Sheriff's Department would follow up on any sightings of hunters walking the creek's bed.
I think an appropriate step would be to get with the Drain Commissioner and find out if it's needed for draining. Or do we want to do it cosmetically? I don't know. Did you see a lot of people back there?
You can see that a great deal of camping has been going on, and it's used very regularly. Food items, it's not a healthy spot.
It's unhealthy?
As far as debris and trash.
Oh.
There's a maintenance road that follows partially, but I would recommend that area be cleaned up and opened up.
Do you think it's affecting the drainage?
I think there is potential of that.
Well, it's potential. Oh, yeah.
Well, you can have Joe go out and take a look.
Yeah, I think that'd be wise. Anything else?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that then someone, whether it's our superintendent, but someone be designated to contact to get some information about what's the expense, what's the cost, what does this entail, rather than just saying, well, we ought to do it, or I guess I need more information, John.
Okay.
I hear what
And
you're
if you
saying,
do that,
but I think it's a good idea, but we can come back April 1st when we have that workshop.
Maybe do that in the drain
But
commission.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm just one person, so.
The drain commission, whether it's a necessity, because that's there for a drain. Now, if we're going to be building something on there, like we had proposed last summer, then it becomes an aesthetic thing too. But there are tremendous drains that aren't particularly aesthetic. I know Butterfield drain, I believe, I know I've seen a lot of glass in there. But the glass in the bottom, it still drains. But it's not good for kids wanting to play. So that's my main concern. Is it affecting the drainage? That's what it's there for, is to drain.
But I think, I certainly am not the person to direct our superintendent to do anything. I think it has to be the board that does that, and I'm just one person, so.
You're 1/4 of enough direction.
1/4, but I don't know if we heard other people who were in favor of taking that approach.
I'm supportive of
I
asking
have
him
no
to.
problem talking to Joe. Sure. Ask him. Yeah.
Okay.
For your information, there's a regional MTA meeting, Allendale, 19:30, next Monday. You will be having students coming now because we're heading towards the end of the semester. They have requirements to get their visit a board meeting for a government class. You may, unless you know they're trustworthy and honest and all that, you may want to have them wait till after the meeting to sign their paper, because we have seen many of them. They come up to me, we sign it, they're there for 2 minutes, and they're out the door. And they get the minutes, and they're smarter than I was. And then we'll make a commitment, because we did say town hall meeting, and my goal would be we will have an announcement of that by June, which is a little over a month away.
I might suggest we only make the high school students stay till 9, otherwise we're probably going to have to write notes to their parents that they were in fact at the board meeting until 10 o'clock.
You can put the time on. Anything further?
Can I, if I may, Dan's presentation tonight was excellent. Yeah. It was excellent. I believe this should be shared with the public. It certainly should be put on our website. But again, I'd like us to consider having a newsletter. I think that would be extremely valuable. It would be insightful, even if we do it once a year. I would like to give some thought to Dan coming up with some prices of what would be involved in having a newsletter. What staff he might need for this. We now have, he has an assistant. I would think that we could do this and do it very professionally. That information was excellent, and it should be in the hands of the people of Georgetown Township. Yes, they can get to it from the website, but not everyone uses that, and I think this is a type of information where people will read through it and read through it carefully. Hudsonville does this, other communities do it. I know there's a little controversy, and some are saying, well, they're kind of pulling back, but we are not tooting our horn on this, and so basic things people are not seeing. The advance is not being delivered like it used to be. We don't have that strong a voice in that area anymore. And I certainly support a newsletter. I'd like to see something put together from a proposal from Dan telling us what could be done and what the cost would be. Semi-annual would be excellent, but certainly we should do it at least once. And this was fantastic. Is there any support?
Support.
Well, there's no motion on the
I know,
floor.
and I'm trying to, if I can get 4 people, we can get something rolling here.
I'm excited to see, particularly the website and the added functionality. I wonder, and I'm supportive in concept, I'm only hesitant in that I know what potential costs can be having sent out newsletters of that magnitude in the past. And so I'm curious to know if added functionality from the website allows us opportunities to maybe collect email addresses and offer a medium where a newsletter could, more inexpensively be distributed to those who desire via social media platforms and in others. So I'm not opposed. My support is coming along, I guess, is how I'm putting it.
I would echo what Chad just said, Mr. Chairman. I am opposed to a published newsletter. It's too expensive. This board may remember that a number of years ago I did a survey of a couple hundred townships to ask them specifically what they did in terms of newsletters. And of the responses that I received, the vast majority send out something twice a year when the tax bills go out. It just makes sense. You're going to put something in the tax bill. Most of them use the website, and more of them, and this gets to what Chad's point was, more and more of them are doing that. Less and less are spending money to mail a published printed piece. Small townships, some of them do it because they only have 500 or so residents. But when we have 30,000 plus or whatever households or whatever we have, I don't know what it is, but it's a substantial number. We're talking a lot of money. And I'm sure someone would argue, well, that's money well spent. Well, I tend to disagree with that. I think there are other avenues now that we can do it, and I go along with what Chad said. I think we have capability, and that if I want to get something on the website, and we can offer, say, if you'd like this, send us an email, and you'll automatically get it. But that's just, I'm basing that on research that I did previously, and fewer municipalities are publishing printed newsletters. They're putting them in their tax bill, something, not a newsletter, but a news item. And I think we've done that in the past as well. We've included information.
So perhaps what you're saying, Rich, is that with our tax mailings, as a compromise middle position, that there could be one or two of those slides or issues that was presented by Dan highlighted as part of that communique.
Sure.
Not an expensive newsletter as much as an insert with a bill or on the other side of the bill or what have you.
Mm-hmm. We do that now.
Yeah,
we've done that.
And maybe what we need to say is when we do that, perhaps what John's noticing here in these slides, a couple of them
Sure,
should be.
and I agree with his points.
It should be in our upcoming Did You Knows or what have you. Yeah, I mean, that's a start in combination.
The school systems can afford it. And even, we just got one from Unity Christian. They realized in order to survive, they have to promote themselves, and that there's all kinds of misconceptions out there. And we have a huge portion of our population that doesn't even know where they live. They don't even know they live in Georgetown Township. I think it'd be powerful, and I think that even if it's once a year, to get that in people's hands, could be used by realtors, it could be used for promoting our area. People are moving in, and they really don't know Georgetown Township. They think they live in Jenison, they think they live in Hudsonville, they think they live in Granville. And here would be a resource that we could use. Even if it's once a year. This was fantastic, and our people do not know. And I did not know until I got involved. I think it would be an excellent tool, and yes, it would cost some money. But it was one of the reasons I supported having some extra help hired, to be able to move in this direction of trying to market ourselves. And so when a new business comes in, you have an excellent resource you can put in their hands that highlights our parks and all the other services we have. People don't realize how low their taxes are. They're astoundingly low here. Put it in front of them so they can see it. But that's not happening. I think it's hurting us. I think it's hurting us as far as promoting the growth of Georgetown Township. Because they don't realize, as Dan had mentioned, we have almost a $3 billion tax base here. People don't realize that.
And other than businesses, it's still growing tremendously.
Yes, and that would be my argument.
And the businesses don't get the newsletter.
If you looked at the slide and you saw the new construction, so, you know, using John's argument, those people are coming in, but they're ignorant because they don't really understand, well, why do they want to move here, John? They want to move here, and you know all the reasons as well as I do.
Sure, but they don't know
So
where
it's
they
not because they don't understand. They're looking for schools, they're looking for services, they're looking for all of that sort of thing, and they do their homework before they buy a lot or before they build a house.
Okay, anything else?
Did you say earlier something about June and town hall? I missed what your statement was.
I said I would like to get this board to make a commitment for a town hall meeting by June 1.
I see, okay. It could be an experiment right along with what we're experimenting with on the Monday evenings, right? I mean, it could be...
I will advise, and you all know it already, but once you've conducted one piece of business, a motion to adjourn is always in order.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.